Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm Joe DeMott, and on behalf of the Wheat Ridge Chamber of Commerce and the City of Wheat Ridge, I'd like to welcome you all to our long-standing tradition, the Wheat Ridge Candidate Forum for 2019, covering the November 5th election of this year, 2019. We have several segments tonight, including a question and answer segment with Wheat Ridge City Council candidates, as well as our city clerk and city treasurer candidates. We will hear statements from each of our Jeffco school board candidates, and we will hear support and opposition from some of our ballot initiatives and state propositions. We will be following city policy on our forum and upholding the tradition set many years ago by the Wheat Ridge United Neighborhoods. And that policy states that if we do not have both sides of a ballot initiative, proposition, referendum, etc., the moderator, myself, will read both sides from the Blue Book. I will announce these as we come to them. Please advise that this is televised and profanity will not be tolerated. Also, to respect everyone's time, we ask that you hold your applause until the breaks. We have a full evening, and I'm going to get right to it. In this council segment, candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening remark. Then they will answer 3 of the 7 questions that they were furnished to them a few days ago. I will draw 3 questions randomly out of this can, and each candidate from the district they are hoping to represent will answer the same questions alternatively. The beginning order will have been chosen by a coin flip. Anybody have a coin? They will get 90 seconds to answer each of the 3 questions. The timekeeper, Maria Vitali, will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left and a red card and say time when your time is up. I will immediately move on to your next question. You will then have 1 minute to use for your closing statement, or you may rebut or finish an answer from a previous question that you had not finished. I will then replace the numbers and the process will reset for the next district. Yes, just grab 3 random pieces of paper. You will need to speak clearly into the microphone and make sure to turn on your microphone. You can turn it on and off with the button. Please be aware if the green light is on, your mic is on. Our District 1 candidates are seated before me already. Please welcome Mrs. Judy Hutchinson and Mr. David Keeter. Because we did not flip a coin, we have a coin, or would you like to let ladies go first, Mr. Keeter?
Heads.
Does that work? Okay. The questions you will be answering today are number 2, number 5, and number 7. And if some of you in the audience haven't grabbed an agenda, they're on there and the questions are in there. Mrs. Hutchinson, if you would like to go ahead when you're ready with your opening statement.
Thank you, Chamber and citizens. I'm Judy Hutchinson, running for District 1 City Council. I'm running for City Council because I feel Wheat Ridge needs to be run by the citizens' voices, not by developers or by special interest groups. I support smart growth by number 1, not rezoning or scraping of residential properties in established neighborhoods. Number 2, regulation of short-term rental properties such as Denver and Edgewater have adopted. 3, preservation, restoration, and new development that residents have a voice in decision-making and are listened to in a matter that affects their neighborhoods. And number 4, fiscal responsibility of elected officials. For 38 years, I've been a homeowner in District 1. I served on Parks and Rec Commission for 1 term. I'm a practicing RN, and I am retired from Wheat Ridge's largest employer, Lutheran, after 30 years. I then worked 3.5 years at Anthem Blue Cross as a health educator. I am a clinical instructor for CNA students. I have 2 children and 5 grandchildren who have attended or attend Wheat Ridge schools. My experience is dealing with people. I've been an advocate for patients and their families. I have common sense, critical thinking, and detail-oriented and organized. I enjoy reading the newspapers. I love to work in the yard. I walk my dog almost every day through the neighborhoods and on 38th Avenue, and I play on a horseshoe team in Edgewater. I have self-funded my campaign and would like to represent District 1 to help keep Wheat Ridge the city we love to live in by preserving our established neighborhoods by not becoming Highlands, Berkeley, or Denver. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keeter.
Thank you. My name is David Keeter. I am the sitting rep for District 1 since January when I was appointed to fill Monica Duran's vacated slot when she was elected to the State House. As I've wandered around Wheat Ridge meeting people, particularly in District 1, I've had a lot of people ask me actually what district they were in, and I realized that often the primary need to know what district you're in is because you need to track down your city council person. And usually that's because there's a problem or there's something that you're upset about. And I think that explains why so many people in the district aren't actually aware of the particular district that they're in. The people that I've met, they track the NRS and the Wheat Ridge surveys that have recently occurred, and they think that the quality of life in Wheat Ridge is good. They believe that Wheat Ridge is a good place to live. They believe that Wheat Ridge has improved over the past 5 years. Obviously, that's not everybody thinks so. The 80% approval in a survey is not 100%, and there are still issues that we need to face going forward, including short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units, both of which are I've been pushing to get on the agenda so that we can get some sort of clarity for the residents going forward. I'm an attorney by trade, and that may conjure an image of people yelling in a courtroom, but the essence of that is negotiation and resolution. Although we may agree on issues, I have the demonstrated ability to do so with civility and respect, and that's a prerequisite to finding common ground. What I hear in District 1 is that life is good, and I agree, and I am the candidate to keep us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. We're going to move right on to your number 1 question, which is number 2 on your packet. We'll alternate. Mrs. Hutchinson, you'll go first. I'm going to read the question. Feel free to ask me to read it back if you need me to. Okay. Number 2, commercial design standards. What is your assessment of the success of the commercial design standards in terms of production and implementation? And what is your commitment to improving both the ordinance and its use?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. This question assumes that I've been involved in this process, and I haven't been. Everything commercial needs standards, supervision, and inspection. What I see is the commercial properties being very similar, 90-degree angles and 45-degree angles. Regarding commitment to improving the ordinance and use, I would need to review the project. Commercial design needs to stay on the corridors, not in the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keeter, I'll read the question again. Concerning commercial design standards, what is your assessment of the success of the commercial design standards in terms of production and implementation? And what is your commitment to improving both the ordinance and its use?
The charter and the code are a blunt instrument that are not particularly suited to assessing development on a parcel by parcel scale. The Architectural and Site Design Manual is a valuable tool for allowing for human scale development, which includes emphasis on walkability, on bikeability, And ultimately, I believe in the predictability and consistency in city approvals. And I support processes like the manual, which set forth clear expectations as to what's required of an applicant to the city. The manual allows the city to be nimble and flexible, and it also encourages creativity. And so I am committed to helping refine that manual through code adjustments as necessary, or working with community development to make sure that that document continues to be responsive to the city's desires and standards.
Thank you. And Mr. Keeter, I'm going to let you go first on this next one. And it is number 5 in your packet. Concerning code enforcement. In Wheat Ridge, our code enforcement is part of our police department. What, if any, changes would you suggest to our current city codes?
Thank you. I understand the connection between code enforcement and quality of life and crime prevention, and that, my understanding, is the rationale for having code enforcement in the police department. And the police department does, I believe, a good job with other entities in communicating standards and requirements to the citizens. Ultimately, the goal of code enforcement is compliance, not adjudication, not prosecution. It's to get people to conform to what the code requires. And most of the citizens that I've talked to, they want to comply. The one area that I've heard is people finding it hard to easily track down what those requirements are. And I absolutely not picking on it, but the website does include a list of the top 10 or so code violations, but it only includes a link to the code itself. There's no pamphlet, there's no separate document that people could get their hands on to identify what the requirements are. I would also support other avenues besides civil or criminal enforcement or abatement orders to allow there to be a discussion between code enforcement and citizens.
Perfect time. Mrs. Hutchinson, concerning code enforcement.
Okay.
In Wheat Ridge, our code enforcement is part of our police department. What, if any, changes would you suggest to our current city codes?
I seriously would support regulation of short-term rental properties such as Denver and Edgewater have adopted. Short-term rentals remove potential housing from the housing market for people or families who may want to purchase a house to live in. This contributes to the housing shortage in neighborhoods. Short-term rentals, Airbnb, etc., need to be owner-occupied, licensed, insured up to codes, inspected, and pay city taxes. It's a big business and makes more money than long-term rentals. The information I've received from homeowners on blocks where short-term rentals are located, there is increased noise, increased traffic, parking in front of neighbors' driveways, and trash coming and going at all hours. There can be bright lights at night, and some owners aren't even on the premises. The answer for me, regulation of the business and pay taxes to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. On to question number 7. Mrs. Hutchinson, I'm going to ask you again to start. Concerning Wadsworth Boulevard, CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of the busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
Thank you. I feel I don't know how this will affect businesses and would need to hear from the businesses. It changes traffic flow, and as I understand, this hasn't been done in an urban area before. It sounds like an experiment. Why would this be done when already tried and true road improvements have been built and also probably cost less money? Is there going to be education to the public prior to the implementation, or implementation prior to the education? and this includes the west side of Denver, Lakewood, and Arvada, the individuals who drive Wadsworth every day going north and south. I would hope that there would be fiscal responsibility involved, even though taxpayers approved 2E, and also the grants are available. It needs to work, and it seems no one really knows if it will or not, or how will it affect businesses. And until there's input from the businesses on their opinions, I don't know how I'd vote. I watched the video on the website, on the city website, and it looked like an accident was ready to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keeter? Concerning Wadsworth Boulevard, CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of our busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
Thank you. Other places have, in fact, tried these continuous flow intersections, and in some cases, they have reported significant reductions in accidents, travel time, and CO2 emissions. These intersections also facilitate bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. I do agree they are counterintuitive in terms of how they operate, and that communication and signage will be crucial to allow people to adjust to a different flow of traffic. But I believe that the opportunity is there to improve these intersections for all users. As for how I will vote, it's premature to, I believe, to make that determination. I believe in the process through the city where staff reviews proposals and then brings them to council with recommendations and rationales as to the justification for that. And the public has allowed their opportunity to comment. So I'm not at this point, I'm open to the idea of innovative designs like this, but not at this point prepared to commit a vote to a specific proposal.
Thank you both. That's the end of our question and answer period. Mr. Keeter, I'll let you go with your closing statement, and you have 1 minute.
Thank you. As District 1 rep for the past 8 months and going forward, I'm committed to managed growth following the NRS roadmap, to reliable processes for city approvals and interactions, for safe access and transportation for all city citizens across our streets, and for communication and transparency by improving the content and the tenor of our civic discourse. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to represent District 1 for these 8 months, and I hope for the opportunity to continue to serve. I appreciate everybody coming out and those watching at home, and would like to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you. Mrs. Hutchinson.
Thank you. I'm running for city council because I feel Wheat Ridge needs to be run by the citizens' voices and not by the developers and special interest groups. I'm very concerned that Wheat Ridge is not going to be the Wheat Ridge that the people I speak with have loved. Wheat Ridge is selling its soul to developers and investors and special interests. 3-story buildings do not belong in the middle of a neighborhood where the houses are 1 and 2 stories. Rezoning and scraping in neighborhoods where mostly one type of zoning occurs just to please developers is just plain not right. There's always been some change, but keep tall buildings and increase density on the corridors. Short-term rentals need to be regulated and be owner-occupied. There is much disturbance in neighborhoods with this type of business operation. Council needs to do a better job of listening and responding to citizen concerns. We as citizens need to follow the money. Thank you. Vote Judy.
Thank you to both of you. Please step down now as we bring in the next set of candidates. Folks, I just need to remind you that this is being televised and it's live. And as we're switching candidates, just please keep the noise down. Thank you. And I'll call District 2 candidates, please. Ms. Rachel Hulteen and Mr. Brandy Zamudio.
first, or are you going to pick who goes first?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Okay.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I'd like to propose an ordinance clarifying the heads and tails process.
That means if you lose the flip, we'll let Mr. Zamudio go first,
Awesome.
Okay.
but we alternate.
Go ahead.
Oh,
All right. Welcome District 2 candidates, Ms. Rachel Hulteen and Mr. Brandy Zamudio. Please remember to just turn on and speak into the microphone. Again, be aware, if the green light is on, the mic is on. The questions drawn for District 2 candidates are going to be number 5, number 6, and number 7. Mr. Zamudio, if you'd like to take 2 minutes for your opening statement.
hi, folks. My name's Brandy Zamudio. I'm obviously a Wheat Ridge resident. I am running for City Council in District 2. I do many things in the community. I am Vice President of the Wheat Ridge Grange. I'm on the board of the WRBA, which is the Wheat Ridge Business Association. I volunteer weekly at Stevens Elementary with the Feed the Future program. I'm on a SAC committee, which means School Accountability Committee for Wheat Ridge High School, where I serve as the community member. I volunteer at Local Works, and I volunteer at my local church. That's my why. I love my community. I'm very involved in my community, and I'm up here today to represent my community and to help my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hulteen.
Thank you and good evening. First of all, thank you to the Chamber for hosting us, and thank you to the full room and all the people who are watching at home. I think it's exciting to be civic-minded, and without a doubt, this is the most important political platform in the nation right now today, so thank you. So my name is Rachel Hulteen, and I am running to serve Wheat Ridge District 2 on City Council because I think Wheat Ridge is wonderful. I moved here and just fell in love with my neighborhood. I was raised in Denver. I'm a fourth-generation native, and I'd lived in some really great places, but it wasn't until I put down roots in Wheat Ridge that I realized I was in my home community, and I saw myself here for the rest of my life. Once you feel that, and I know a lot of people in the room know the magic Wheat Ridge has on us, you realize that you want to be part of what happens tomorrow in your own community. When I felt that calling, I stepped up. I got involved in local issues, I got involved in local organizations, but I also really committed myself to building other leadership in the community. I started Wheaties Academy to ensure that people of all ages and generations understood how Wheat Ridge was founded, how we've become such a great place, and how we can ensure we stay great tomorrow. I have the skills and experience through my professional work to serve our community. I have a background in transportation. I was a real estate agent helping people pick their communities for 18 years. I also, right now, I'm a professional community engagement specialist, which means my job is to help people do better input for better outcomes. The most important thing I've done is I've co-chaired the neighborhood revitalization strategy in the last year. So I've spent the last 11 months asking our neighbors, what's the thing Wheat Ridge has to get right to survive and be the best version of itself in the next 10 years? And the answer is clear: be a champion for our neighborhoods. And I am a champion for our neighborhoods. I'm excited to bring my skills and insight and expertise to make sure Wheat Ridge is wonderful tomorrow, just like it is today. Thank you.
Time. Thank you very much. Ms. Hulteen, I'm going to have you move right on to question number 5. Concerning code enforcement. In Wheat Ridge, our code enforcement is part of our police department. What, if any, changes would you suggest to our current city codes?
Thank you. As I mentioned a minute ago, I helped co-chair the NRS. And when we started the conversation, the number one thing we heard from our neighbors when we asked them what was important to them were different stories of code violations in their neighborhood. And it seemed a year ago that solving code violations was like the number one priority for the city. But then what we learned when we asked our citizens and got 1,200 responses back, we literally asked them the question, do you believe your neighbors are maintaining their properties either exceptionally well or to a good standard? And 79% of the respondents said yes. So there are things that we can do and should do to always be looking at how we can improve ourselves, and code enforcement is one of those. But I'm not in a position to sit here and say what I think should be changed, but I am in a position to understand that there are specific things people would like to see improved. I would like first to look at the process of how we enforce our codes before actually starting to meddle with specific codes. So again, I think the best thing to do is ask the community, look at how we do it, and then step forward where it's needed, but realize it doesn't drive the fact that Wheat Ridge is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zamudio, concerning code enforcement. In Wheat Ridge, our code enforcement is part of our police department. What, if any, changes would you suggest to our current city codes?
Well, first of all, I would agree, as a representative of District 2, we need to listen to our community and find out the needs. With code enforcement, they need to be part of the police department, obviously, because they need to know somewhat of the background of the law to enforce the law. It seems as though there's not enough resources for our code enforcement right now due to whatever factor there is in the system that doesn't allow it. I believe if we give them enough resources, they will uphold the codes that we currently have. The one thing I hesitate with is becoming an extreme city where we're measuring flags hanging on the outside of a building with a ruler. I think that is counterproductive. I don't think that that is what Wheat Ridge needs nor wants. So to summarize, let's give them the tools with the codes that we currently have to enforce those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second question, Mr. Zamudio, will be question number 6 on your questionnaire. Many cities' goal is to increase strong households. Please tell us in your words what defines a strong household and how can we attract them?
Strong household, let's think about that. I think that there's a different answer for all of us in that definition. That for us to label that is, I don't think that's very wise, because I think everybody has a different opinion of what a strong household is. As I'm walking and talking in the community with concerned citizens, I've yet to see a weak household. Each one of them is strong in their own way. I think if we work on the households that we have in Wheat Ridge to make them stronger, better, more knowledgeable, educated, I think that that would do us much better than trying to attract strong households, so to speak. I don't want to drive down Wheat Ridge or Wadsworth and have a strong household lane. If we work with what we have, we can do it. I'm not done yet. But to me, strong means that they're willing to invest time, they have income, and they have community involvement, and they vote. We have that currently. We don't need to attract more of that. We have it. Let's work on what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zamudio. Ms. Hulteen, many cities' goal is to increase strong households. Please tell us in your words what defines a strong household and how can we attract them?
Thank you. I agree. I think it's hard to define a strong household. However, I do believe that what Wheat Ridge, like other communities, is trying to attract is people who feel connected here. The Knight Foundation conducted a national survey of over 4,300 people to find out what are the aspects of a community or the attributes of their city that make them feel more connected to where they live. And the results of that were 3 very clear indicators. One is a community with great social offerings, a community that is open and welcoming, and a community that has great aesthetics. And I think that that is as true in Wheat Ridge as it is anywhere in the country. And I think we actually have those things. So I think we're well positioned to attract strong households, whatever that means. But I think we have to realize a strong household can look very different home to home. It isn't a specific lifestyle, it isn't a specific age. It is somebody who feels connected and welcome here. I'm really excited. I think the NRS sets out a strong roadmap to ensure that the strong households we have today, we can retrain. And people who are looking for a new community to call home, Wheat Ridge is a place that they're going to consider.
Thank you. Moving on to question 7. Ms. Hulteen, you'll go first. Concerning Wadsworth Boulevard, CDOT has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of the busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
Thank you. So I've actually been pretty engaged with the Wadsworth project. I live one block essentially off of Wadsworth, and when it's reconstructed, it's going to have a significant impact on my own quality of life as well as my neighbors. That having been said, as I've been walking the community and talking to them about what's important, the number one thing I hear is frustration with traffic. They feel like the regional growth is really negatively impacting just being able to get to the grocery store. So the importance of moving forward with widening Wadsworth is fundamental to the quality of life that we have in our community. This project has been in progress for 2 years, and actually just last week received the final sign-off from the federal government and the state CDOT. With that in mind, at this point, to question any of the designs that are in place actually endangers the project moving forward. It's a $45 million project. We've received $32.9 million in funding from the federal government. We've received $4.4 million from CDOT, and any further delays in the project could actually jeopardize the funding we have in place. I'd like to see Wadsworth work better. I've driven in the CFIs that are in the state. We've got them in Durango, Colorado Springs, and I think Loveland. They actually work really well, and they're designed to make it intuitive. So I think, we're a resilient community. We'll figure it out. I'm looking forward to Wadsworth functioning better for all people who use it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zamudio, number 7, concerning Wadsworth Boulevard. CDOT has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of our busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
Well, I believe I as well as everybody in this room wants Wadsworth to flow better. That's absolutely. But my main concern is with the CFIs that they were implemented after the final recommendation as an alternative, not listed in the planning and environmental study. So also my concern is that it has been in certain areas, but not quite like the section that we wanted here in Wheat Ridge. And so it's not proven in that fact to my knowledge. So why are we the guinea pigs? Why aren't we in the digital age gathering information from communities around us, communities throughout the United States, as to if they've proved this right or wrong? And I don't want to be in a city that it's a guinea pig to prove to the rest of the world whether it works or not. We need to make decisions not on hope and hope that it works. We need to make decisions on facts and proven things. And there's enough information out there for us to gather that information and the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zamudio. Thank you both. That ends the question and answer period. You're each going to have 1 minute for your closing statement. And Mr. Zamudio, you'll go first.
I come from a family born here in Colorado. I'm a Colorado native. My wife's family has been in Wheat Ridge for 50 plus years. My wife's parents live down the street from me in District 2. My wife's identical sister lives in our district. The grandmother, when she was alive, lived in our district. Our entire family is in our district, and I love our district. My commitment extends past this election. I will be in this community for the rest of my life with my family. And I care about this community. So the decisions I make are for the community, not how it affects me. Yes, I have an opinion, but does my opinion count? A little bit. But when I'm talking about the people of Wheat Ridge, it's a very little bit. So vote for me, Brandy Zamudio, District 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zamudio. Ms. Hulteen?
Thank you. Brandy and I actually had coffee a couple of weeks ago, and I was just really excited for our district because I will say it's a win-win for you guys. I'm a fourth generation Colorado native, but I'm newer to Wheat Ridge. And when I got here, I felt like I had to really earn my stripes to be heard, like that you have to really establish yourself to count. And I think it's really important. Almost half of our residents have moved here in the last 10 years. We are a city that has a lot of history, a lot of deep roots, and is also experiencing some change. I'm committed to holding monthly district meetings so that I can hear everybody's voice, so that when I'm representing my district, I'm representing everybody. I'm a proud mom. I have great dogs who spent today at the emergency vet, which is why I'm a little hoarse. But Wheat Ridge is my community that I see myself in for a long time. I'm excited to help be part of what it is tomorrow, because I love living here today. If you need any more information about my experience, my skills, my passion, please visit my website, wheatridgeproud.org. Thank you.
Thank you both, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
We will continue with District 3 in just a moment. I'll remind you folks too, those of you here, there are some refreshments in the boardroom just behind us. If you'd like to step out and have something, you can definitely bring it back in here too.
I was actually hoping we could do rock, paper, scissors, but.
We do a thumb wrestle. Heads.
Okay. Well, I guess the decision was that the heads goes first, right?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Figlis, you go ahead and start.
Thank you. My name is Ihor Figlis, and I am running for the City Council for District 3. I appreciate the opportunity to address you, everybody, today. A little bit about myself. My family moved here in 1972 from North Denver, and wanting to have a little bit extra space and a view of the mountains. I got my degree from CU and then decided to go out and see the world. I worked in many different, and lived in many different places. I was in Los Angeles, Detroit, Chicago, and even had an opportunity to work overseas. But I've come back to Wheat Ridge, and Wheat Ridge, I love it here. This is my community of choice. I like being close to the mountains and having everything that Wheat Ridge offers in terms of the nice communities, the pace of life here, and my neighbors. And the reason I got involved in this was because about a year ago there was a proposal to do a development in our neighborhood which I thought was not appropriate, and my neighbors didn't think it was appropriate. And I helped our neighbors get organized and really started paying attention to what was going on with the development in the city, and saw things happening in other neighborhoods where people had similar concerns. And I believe in the voice of the people. I think the people who live in areas should be the ones that primarily determine what happens in their neighborhoods. And I think they should be listened to, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Stites, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, members of the chamber. I was born and raised here in Wheat Ridge. I went to Colorstrand, Everett, and graduated from Wheat Ridge High School. I earned a degree in history with a minor in business from Metro State University, and I have a master's degree in organizational leadership and development. Growing up, I learned the value of community service and involvement from my grandfather, Hank Stites, who was a 3-term mayor here in Wheat Ridge, my father, Mike Stites, who was a 2.5-term city councilman, and our family also owned B&F Tire Company for over 65 years on 38th Avenue. My wife, Sarah, and I are raising our 2 children in the same house that I grew up in. Our daughter is now attending Color Strand Elementary just like I did. We own Personal Achievement Martial Arts at 40th and Youngfield. We reinvest heavily back into our community by raising thousands of dollars every year for local elementary schools. We partner with the Carnation Festival, Local Works, and the city to improve our community. In 2017, we were Local Works Community Builder of the Year. 2018, we were voted Best Business Entry for the Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival. We were also Best of the Best Martial Arts Schools in the area, and we were Wheat Ridge Business of the Year in 2018. When not working with my family or my business, I give back to the community in many ways, serving on many boards and commissions. I was part of the Mayor's Citizens Outreach Committee, the Wheat Ridge Water District Board, the Jeffco Futures Funding Committee, and the Wheat Ridge Business District. Most recently, I was the co-chair for the Neighborhood Revitalization Steering Committee that earned the City Council Partnership Award this morning. Citizens of District 3, I was born in District 3, I was raised in District 3, I own a business in District 3, I'm raising my family in District 3. You should vote for me because I want to be a voice and a part of the solution and not a roadblock. I want to be someone who brings more people into discussion and creates a proactive way for the city to engage with its citizens. We will make change fit us. We want to make sure that our neighborhoods are strong. We want to make sure that our neighborhoods have a voice in what's going on. I have a proven track record of being able to work with many different types of people, being the first person to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you both. We drew the questions, and the questions we will be answering is number 1 on your packet, number 3, and number 4. Mr. Stites, you'll go first. Question number 1. Businesses in Wheat Ridge must abide by state and federal law, such as the minimum wage and property tax, etc. What, if any, changes can be made in Wheat Ridge to level the playing field for businesses in Wheat Ridge to compete with the growing populations of our surrounding cities?
Thank you. Well, thankfully, other cities like Lakewood have slowed their growth down, well, on purpose, leaving an opening for Wheat Ridge to grow at a slower pace, but still be able to grow and catch up. The implementation of the recently adopted NRS will help our citizens engage with the city to find out where we see areas to develop and what we want to see developed in our neighborhoods. I am a member of the Wheat Ridge Business District, and we give grants to businesses and property owners looking to improve our commercial building spaces. These matching grants go to things like signs, facades, and other physical building improvements that can give our local businesses an edge versus the surrounding cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stites. Mr. Figlis. Businesses in Wheat Ridge must abide by state and federal law, such as minimum wage and property tax, etc. What, if any, changes can be made in Wheat Ridge to level the playing field for businesses in Wheat Ridge to compete with the growing populations of our surrounding cities?
It's true that as Wheat Ridge businesses have to comply with all kinds of state laws and federal laws and so forth. And I certainly hope that they find Wheat Ridge to be a welcoming environment as far as enforcement of various city rules and keeping everybody on the same level playing field and in competing for business. We're a unique community as different from the ones around us because we are really a bedroom community, but we're also at the same time attractive to small and maybe medium-sized businesses. We are not after the big box stores, although we have a couple of them on our periphery. But as far as the lifeblood of the city is the small business. The small businesses along 38th, the small businesses along 44th, and so forth. And I think Wheat Ridge, the business community here and the city can provide resources to those businesses in terms of the kind of resources that large corporations have access to, and let them use those to run nice, stable businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Figlis. Your second question is number 3 on your packet. Infrastructure. Do you support concentrating infrastructure improvements in key prioritized redevelopment zones or catalyst infrastructure projects? If so, what should be the determining factors in developing the prioritized list? Mr. Figlis. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, of course, infrastructure improvements should definitely be prioritized as needed for redevelopment projects or catalyst projects as they are conceived. Now, catalyst projects are unique ways to use areas which may have fallen into disuse or not being used to their highest and greatest purpose. That usually involves somebody to come in with a creative vision, and oftentimes it's somebody from the business community who might come forward with a creative idea. I think the city should be open to those creative ideas, and if there are particular infrastructure projects that can be implemented in order to develop those ideas, I would definitely be for it. I think there's certainly, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis and make sure the city can afford it and that it does not actually impede on any of the standards, living standards we have in Wheat Ridge that people expect from the community. But I would definitely be for providing that type of development.
Thank you, Mr. Figlis. Mr. Stites. Concerning infrastructure, do you support concentrating infrastructure improvements in key prioritized redevelopment zones or catalyst infrastructure projects? If so, what should be the determining factors in developing the prioritized list?
Wheat Ridge has a number of infrastructure issues, drainage issues, old pipes, poor sidewalks, things like that. While I was a member of the Wheat Ridge Water Board, I was able to see just how old and outdated much of our infrastructure is in places. However, the great news is with all of the redevelopment that we have going on in the city of Wheat Ridge, we have opportunities for our special districts and for our city to be able to save money to step in while these projects are going on to update a lot of that infrastructure. So yes, if we can find creative ways to work with developers, work with businesses to become a catalyst for some of that infrastructure to be fixed and to be updated, then we should absolutely look into that. Also, those developers will take on some of that burden as far as making sure that if they're cutting into the ground, then our water companies, our power companies can get in and fix those things while they're actually in doing that work. And then we don't have to spend as a city that money on subcontractors to actually go in and do that. So absolutely, I believe that we should take advantage of all the development and improve our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stites. We'll begin with you again, Mr. Stites. We're going to be on question number 4 in your packet. Concerning schools in our community, as we search for our place to raise our families, we find ourselves in pursuit of the best schools for our children. How do you propose to align the values and goals of the city and its institutions with respect to the basic needs of families like ours? Can we better use our schools as the anchors for community stability, health, and growth?
I was actually pretty excited to get this question because education is a passion of mine. My wife was a teacher in Jeffco for 12 years. I personally work with and raise money for almost every single elementary school in the area, both in Wheat Ridge, Arvada, and Golden. As a member of the PTA of Color Strand, we need to make sure that we elect city officials who not only are involved, but care about and have a stake in what's making our schools work. As a city, we have a responsibility to support our local schools by making sure we attract younger families that want to raise their kids here in Wheat Ridge, making sure we have safe ways for those kids to get to and from school, walking, biking, and driving. Our police need to enforce the speed limits and traffic laws in school zones. I would also like to make sure that our local businesses spend time partnering with our elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools to make sure that we have a workforce-ready school or workforce-ready children as they graduate so that they can work in our local businesses. We can use our schools to attract new families by making sure that the quality of those schools is part of what's being sold as what is Wheat Ridge. So we have STEM schools, we have exploration schools, we have a lot of different diverse schools that will attract more families to Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stites. Mr. Figlis, same question. Schools and our community. As we search for our place to raise our families, we find ourselves in pursuit of the best schools for our children. How do you propose to align the values and goals of the city and its institutions with respect to the basic needs of families like ours? Can we better use our schools as the anchors for community stability, health, and growth?
This is a very interesting question. There's a number of opportunities here. Basically, in my neighborhood where I live, we've had a number of young families that have moved in, and I know that one of the reasons they came here is because they chose not just the house they wanted to live in and the yard, but they also looked at the schools. To the extent that the county controls the quality of education in our schools, we as a city really don't have much to do with that. But we can provide a safe environment for people. I've heard a number of comments from citizens who are concerned about certain areas where children walk alongside roads that maybe don't have proper walkways installed. I have also heard comments about potential development, overrunning or squeezing some open property by the school. Like, for example, there's a proposal to build an amphitheater complex in front of the school over here on 38th. And, but we've got a nice park around this city hall where we could build that amphitheater and not encroach on the school property that's there. I think there's a number of projects like that that can be looked at and keep the schools kind of a place where people can come and play, not just during the school day, but other times.
Thank you, Mr. Figlis. That's time. If you'll continue in for 1 minute for your closing statement when you're ready. Thank you.
As we talked here, maintaining neighborhood character is not all there is to running a vibrant city. We want to maintain that character. That's what the citizens want. But there are issues that have come up recently where people think that is being threatened. And one of those is because I think some of our city codes need to be revamped. There are a number of more technical issues, like, for example, instituting bulk plane requirements in residential zones, how do we allow subdivisions to be administered by the city, and how much input there should be from the neighbors. And that's why I'm running, because I want to have regular district meeting and understand what the neighbors want in their neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Figlis. Mr. Stites, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I absolutely love Wheat Ridge, and specifically, I love District 3. I was born in District 3. I'm raising my family in District 3. I own a business in District 3. I want to make sure that District 3 and Wheat Ridge continue to grow for the next 50 years, prosper, and make sure that we have a strong city that we can be proud of. I'm excited for the opportunity to run for city council, but I also want to make sure that no matter who wins, we make sure that we as citizens continue to support and continue to grow, and make sure that as we move forward with the character of Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck to both of you. portion, this is District 4, and I live in District 4. So I'm actually going to pass the invisible gavel to one of our Board of Director members. Miss Maria Vitale will be asking you your questions, and I'm going to go listen.
Yeah, it's right there. Good evening. Good evening to all of you. We have 3 candidates for District 4 this year, and we do appreciate your participation in this year's election. Welcome to Ms. Valerie Nosler Beck, Mr. Larry Matthews, and Mr. Chris Bird. Shall we do a coin toss, or can I start with Ms.
I get to go first,
Ms. Nosler?
but I don't have a sign, so I'm Val.
Ms. Nosler, you will have 2 minutes for opening remarks.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. I'm sorry, who's timing? Okay,
Okay, so hold on. For the evening, as we're waiting for him to time, you will be answering questions 2, 6, and 7. Do you need the other phone? Oh.
thanks. Did I look like I was just trying to find a spot? Thanks, Brandy.
So I'm taking all the name tags.
All right, that seems fair. All right, but I do get to go first still, so. All right. Are we ready to go?
You ready with the timer? We will begin with opening statements.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Val Nosler, running for City Council District 4. My husband and I picked Wheat Ridge as the place to put down roots 5 years ago, almost to the day. We love the small town feel, and honestly, we love our neighbors. Our 2 young daughters attend the same school my mom attended. We spend our summers at Anderson Pool. We have almost fully restored our 1963 mid-century home to its original glory, pink flamingo bathroom and all. We love so much about Wheat Ridge. This is my second time running for City Council District 4. In 2017, I ran because affordable housing, homelessness, and infrastructure issues were impacting our city and neighborhoods. Professionally, I had helped other municipalities build back more resilient after the 2013 floods. I wanted to bring my skill set to my city. I didn't win that race in 2017, but I did not lose. After running for council, I served on the Cultural Commission and was appointed to the Urban Renewal Board. What I got out of that race, most importantly, was the friendship of the 3 people I ran against: City Councilwoman Leah Dozman, D4 resident Andy Rasmussen, and Ruth Baranowski. There's a new kind of politics brewing in Wheat Ridge. It has very little to do with party affiliation and much more to do with getting things done. I learned from the experience that we can do so much more together. On council, I will bring that lesson of leadership and inclusivity with me. As I knock on doors and talk to residents, they are sick of how divided our city has become over zoning and development. They don't feel that they have a place at the table. Residents, no matter their income or schedule or access to Facebook, should have a voice in the process. On council, I will support the neighborhood revitalization strategy recommendations. I will support authentic growth that helps businesses thrive in Wheat Ridge. On council, I will work to get residents a decision on ADUs. I want the Housing Authority to be reactivated and re-energized. I look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now hear from Mr. Larry Matthews' opening statement.
Thank you. I'm Larry Matthews, running for District 4. I want to thank you all for attending the forum this evening. I have had the pleasure and the privilege of serving District 4 and all of you for the past 4 years, and I look forward to supporting my constituents for the next 4 years. I don't think my job here is complete. 4 years ago, only 42% of the citizens thought that elected officials acted in the best interest of their community. In the 2018 citizen survey, still only 46% of citizens thought that their elected officials acted in the best interest of the community. There is still much work to do. There is good news. 58% of our citizens think Wheat Ridge has gotten better over the last 5 years. I am pleased that I've helped to raise that bar. Many of our long-term challenges were met in the last 4 years. The most significant for our citizens is the establishment of the Clear Creek Crossing development. I have consistently supported this project. I believe it is the right project, and more importantly, in the right location. It diversifies the physical demographics of our city without sacrificing our historic neighborhoods. The G line finally arrived, horns and all, which in turn gives our city the added dimension of a transit-oriented development in our city. I have supported limited higher density residential development at the Ward Station. In addition, I believe in preserving the character and atmosphere of our lovely and diverse existing neighborhoods. I worked hard to support and enact the first bulk plane codes in the city, and I support a strong codes enforcement department to help accomplish that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. We will now hear opening statements from Mr. Chris Bird.
Hello, my name is Christopher Bird, and I'm running for council here in District 4. My wife and I chose Wheat Ridge to be our home, and we can't imagine living anywhere else. I'm proud to live in Wheat Ridge, and that's why I got involved in the community. As an Eagle Scout, community service has been a big part of my life, and last year I was afforded the opportunity to serve on the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Steering Committee. For over a year, we spoke with residents about what they wanted to see in Wheat Ridge and what they wanted our community to be. I'm running for council to see this process through to the end and implement the NRS the way the residents want it. As a small city in a growing metro area, we face unique challenges of growing with it while maintaining our distinct character. District 4 also has some unique challenges of its own, including having the majority of the I-70 corridor, major streets such as Kipling and 44th, as well as parts of the Clear Creek Greenbelt. It encompasses Pennington Elementary and Everett Middle School, just to name a few. And it truly embodies the history of Wheat Ridge with the historic park on the west end of 44th. As a candidate, I'm not accepting donations or seeking endorsements. I feel that this makes me solely accountable to the citizens of Wheat Ridge and not big donors and entities that help get me elected. If I'm elected, I promise to hold at a minimum quarterly meetings to inform and educate the public about issues facing our city and to hear their feedback when implementing policy. And in doing so, I will be accountable to the citizens and a voice for the people on council. Tonight, I am asking all of you to get involved in the process beyond the election cycle. Talk to your candidates, talk to your city council representatives, and most importantly, talk to your neighbors. Together, we can build a Wheat Ridge that we all love. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. We will begin with your first question, which is the second question in your handout. Mr. Matthews, we will start with you. Commercial design standards. What is your assessment of the success of the commercial design standards in terms of production and implementation? What is your commitment to improving both the ordinances and its use?
Within our city, we have several different commercial zone areas, and we have a wide range of commercial land uses, which include office, general business, retail, sales, and service establishments. In our architectural and the site design manuals, we have requirements to meet the conditions of those commercial areas, and in addition, we have overlay areas to help to designate between traditional and new areas. So if we have to do a development on Main Street, we have one overlay. If we're going to do a very new development out at Clear Creek Crossing, we have a second overlay. I believe that the intent of our design manuals has been serving the city very well to this extent. It gives us a lot of flexibility to handle all of the different design needs that we need. Based on the new developments in the city, I'm happy with the current methods that we have for serving our intended builders, and we have everything from small to large commercial projects taking place throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. We will move to Mr. Byrd. Mr. Byrd, commercial design standards. What is your assessment of the success of the commercial design standards in terms of production and implementation? What is your commitment to improving both the ordinance and its issue?
Alrighty. Well, as far as production and implementation goes, even driving around the city, it does seem to be working for us. We've seen a lot of great improvements on West 38th, and as Larry brought up with Clear Creek Crossing, it'll have a great standard in and of itself, but there are a few areas where it seems to be lacking, like along 44th and Kipling. The Wheat Ridge Business District currently does have a grant program, and it's a great opportunity to help fund some of those investments or even reimburse some of those investments. And as far as being committed to it, I am committed to it and the continued use of the ordinance. And I'm open to community input and business input as far as updating it in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Ms. Valerie Nosler, you will now answer. Question number 2, commercial design standards. What is your assessment of the success of the commercial design standards in terms of production and implementation? What is your commitment to improving both the ordinance and its use?
Thanks. I had the privilege, and I currently have the privilege of sitting on the Urban Renewal Board, where I know that it's so important to have plans on what we're going to do with these specific zones, so the urban renewal zones and then the commercial districts, and to be able to stick with the plan to help the business owners. What I like about these manuals is that, or this manual, is that it helped and it worked with businesses to help develop it. And so as long as the manual continues to serve the businesses and people who are interested in building here in Wheat Ridge, I will always support the manual.
Thank you, Ms. Nosler. We will move on to question number 6. Mr. Byrd, we will begin with you. In Wheat Ridge, as in many cities, a goal is to increase strong households. Please tell us, in your words, what defines a strong household and how can we attract them?
All right. Strong households are hard to define because from household to household, it can look different. But to me, anybody with a stake in the community is a strong household, whether they're a homeowner or they own a business or they simply vote, volunteer in the community, or care about Wheat Ridge. And I believe that giving these kinds of people the option to own a home in Wheat Ridge will help create a stronger Wheat Ridge for everybody. And that option to own, especially around the G line, gives people an affordable opportunity to work higher paying jobs in Denver, bring that money back to Wheat Ridge, and reinvest it in our community and further make our community stronger. And people who are involved in community outreach, attend city events, express opinions to city council, are generally a good neighbor and vote are always good standards for strong households. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Ms. Nosler, you will answer next. In Wheat Ridge, as in many cities, a goal is to increase strong households. Please tell us, in your words, what defines a strong household and how can we attract them?
I agree with some of the comments that were made earlier about this question, that it's really hard to define a strong household. And I don't know if I'm necessarily the person to do that. But I do know that Wheat Ridge, in my household, I consider it to be a strong one. Wheat Ridge has had opportunities for me to get civically engaged and participate. I've found ways to also engage with my neighbors and help them as well. I think that the opportunities that we can probably improve upon in order to allow for more families to have the experience that I have would be to make sure that our lines of communication between government and residents are open and that residents have an opportunity to be involved in the process earlier on. I think that we have opportunities for residents to also start participating more with their neighbors and doing some more neighborhood organizing. And I'd like to see that happen more often to help build our neighborhoods. Or I'm sorry, our households.
Thank you, Ms. Nosler. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. The original NRS study defined strong households as follows. Strong households typically earn between $59,000 and $88,000 per year. Their theory was that in order to attract higher quality retail, we needed more families with more disposable income. I have a much broader definition for strong families. There's an old adage that the Army runs on its life for sergeants. I always assumed that the long-term soldiers added much-needed continuity to a strong military. I believe that we need lifer residents in Wheat Ridge to provide for the stability and continuity that they provide. There's another old saying that people buy and die in Wheat Ridge. We have many families where multiple generations have attended our schools and made their homes here. My own family had 3 generations living in Wheat Ridge. I believe we must continue to provide resources to support multi-generational families in our community across all income spectrums. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Your final question for the evening will be question number 7. Ms. Nosler, we will begin with you. Wadsworth Boulevard. CDOT has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of our busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council? Excuse me.
Oh, I'm on. Thanks. I've actually seen the CFIs work pretty darn well. In my parents' area in Louisville, they have a CFI that works. I'm most concerned about this type of intersection in that location because it is a different type of intersection than it has ever been done in before. But we all know that something has to be done there. And I know that the CFIs have the ability to allow for safe crosswalks and for people to be able to bike. And also, once residents or people using the intersection and they get used to using it, I think that there's actually some studies that show that people have a hard time learning how to use them. But once it gets figured out and the proper education happens with the intersection, they can be really a positive attribute to the community and to our infrastructure and transportation systems.
Thank you, Ms. Nosler. Mr. Matthews, question number 7, Wadsworth Boulevard. CDOT has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of our busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
Thank you. As a sitting councilor, I have done my best to do outside research on the CFI lanes. I started out doing that when I was told by the city that CDOT wanted them, and I was told by CDOT that the city wanted them. That left me confused. The common rule of thumb is that they are best suited for open areas with lots of right-of-way and limited access roads. Utah has recently constructed 10 CFI intersections in Salt Lake County. Their Department of Transportation claims that they are working well, and I don't think they're going to make any other claims because they've spent a lot of money doing it. They are installed on their Beltway limited roads. In many locations, they have additional right turn lanes outside the left turn lanes. Their report states that they believe CFIs can be utilized on a tightly packed urban corridor, but they're not quite sure how to do it. I'm not sure we are either. One of the interesting facts I discovered is that the engineers are predicting that we will attract 30% more traffic with the CFIs, but will attract only 10% more traffic if we do nothing. I could not find predictive numbers for future traffic counts with traditional double left turn lanes. I fear that we will increase the chances of becoming a through conduit for traffic from north to south, and our businesses will not reap any benefits. Yet, we must improve the corridor while we have the millions of dollars of outside funds available. Since our citizens funded the work through 2E with CFIs included, I will have to follow their wishes, unless there's a major change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Mr. Byrd, same question, number 7, Wadsworth Boulevard. CDOT has long been planning the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. Continuous flow intersections have been proposed to the new design. Please tell us how you feel CFIs will affect one of our busiest commercial corridors, and how will you vote when the final plan becomes the decision of City Council?
I believe that the CFIs would benefit the Wadsworth corridor by better accommodating the traffic flow at peak travel times and efficient straight line signal timing by eliminating the left turn signal and delay time. And it would be safer, at least eliminating the left turn across the flow of traffic. And with the design, including pedestrian and bicycle lanes, I think that could be a big benefit for Wheat Ridge as far as reducing our vehicle traffic, especially with the G line. I think it would be very helpful. As far as voting for it, I would hold off until I hear plans from the city staffers and reports on what the final decision would be, and recommendations that would come from it before making any final decisions. Thank you.
Thank you all. It is now time for your closing remarks. You will all be given 1 minute. We will begin with you, Mr. Byrd.
For a long time, I've heard that politicians and just about every candidate up here has said that they will listen to residents. And listening is important, but that's only the first step in the process. The second step is hearing. When we hear, we take the ideas, the thoughts, and the concerns of citizens to heart and really process through it. The final step is taking what we hear and putting that into action and policy. If elected, I will listen, hear, and act on the wishes of the citizens to be a voice of the people on City Council. I'm asking for your support on November 5th, and a vote for Byrd is a vote for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Ms. Valerie Nosler, your closing statement.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for your time tonight. Thank you to Larry for your service. And Chris, thanks for stepping up for Wheat Ridge. A special thanks to the Chamber. I'm Val Nosler, candidate for City Council District 4. I'm running because Wheat Ridge is a special place with residents that are passionate about the future of our community. I want to move Wheat Ridge forward together while preserving what makes our city great. I will meet District 4 residents where they are. Let's find ways to get out ahead of development. We can shape the future of our community because all families, no matter their income, should feel welcome in Wheat Ridge neighborhoods. Let's get rid of the divisiveness in our local government and focus on the job we were sent to do, building a resilient community that is ready for the future. You can learn more about me at val4wheatridge.com, and that's with a 4, the number 4, and my phone number is 303-350-0772 if you'd like to text me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nosler. Last but not least, Mr. Matthews, your closing statement.
Thank you. For the past 4 years, I have worked to bring the citizens' voices into the council chambers. That is my real job. I was not elected to tell you how you need to lead your lives or raise your families. I was elected to listen to your wants and needs and facilitate having the city act on your wishes. I've had citizens from other districts contact me to help them resolve their issues. I pride myself on being a champion for the people. My job description goes like this. I'm a part-time, temporary employee of the city, hired directly by the citizens to promote their goals and wishes. Thank you. Vote for Larry Matthews.
Thank you to all of our City Council hopefuls, and we wish you the best of luck. Up next will be candidates for City Clerk. are new. You want to throw these out?
If we could please have our candidates for city clerk come to the front, please. No, it's just three. Thank you and welcome. Candidates for city clerk are Miss Vivian Voss and Mr. Steve Kirkpatrick. Ms. Voss, did you win the coin toss?
Did not.
Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick, I guess I should have paid attention. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you will have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
I want to thank the council and all of you who are watching on television and all of you who are here in attendance tonight because you're getting involved in your government. I believe that the most important planks in my platform as I run for city clerk are in 2 words: impartial and transparent. The city clerk's role as an administrator in the city government is to do many different things, including keeping accurate, complete archives of all city records, outcomes of council meetings through their minutes, as well as our commissions and boards. The city clerk is, more importantly, the election commissioner. As the commissioner of elections, the clerk must receive petitions because, of course, our home rule charter gives us the power to put any issue we like on the ballot or to try to reverse any action taken by council through the ballot. As a consequence, I believe the clerk must remain informed, knowledgeable of what the issues are, but impartial, and make sure that all city records and filings are transparently available to everyone. Why am I running for clerk? My neighbors first asked me to run for city council. Then several civic leaders came to me and said, would you please step up to the citywide level and run for clerk? Why did they ask me to do that? Well, they said it was because of my qualifications. I have 46 years of business experience, including 10 as an executive, 4 years running an organization that had 400 people in it. I went to school until they made me take a pledge not to take any more courses. I have 4 university degrees, including a doctorate in behavioral sciences. But the main reason I'm running, although I am a relative newcomer to Wheat Ridge, I've only been here 28 years, is that I love the city and I want to maintain the quality of what we do here. An impartial and transparent city clerk is essential to that goal.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Ms. Voss, 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Good evening. I am Vivian Voss, candidate for your city clerk. I am a Colorado native, and my husband and I have lived in Wheat Ridge 22 years. The last 6 years, as I attended city council and study sessions, I was aware of the city clerk taking the minutes. And I thought, I know I can do that. Surprise! The city webpage lists 13 duties of the city clerk, and I was surprised. And if you would like to know what those duties are, I have them listed on the back of my campaign brochure that's out in the foyer. I can handle those 13 because my career training in 1973 was executive secretarial. I have had 30 years' experience as an office manager. Over the last 45 years, I have had careers that use the skills that a city clerk must have: organization, ability to multitask, good communication and grammar, attention to detail, with data entry and spreadsheet skills. All this with a strong work ethic, a worker but with manager skills. My passion to serve has led me to volunteer as secretary at the Grange and as a planning commissioner, as attendee of Wheat Ridge High School Marketing Committee, as citizen of an outside agency committee. I also volunteer as client funds manager on the Wheat Ridge Community Foundation. I strive to be fair, transparent, and build relationship with citizens and government officials by being patient, positive, reliable, respectful, and trustworthy. I want to earn your vote November 5 and work together with you, the citizen.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. We'll move on to the questions. Mrs. Voss, you'll go first. We will be answering questions number 1 and 3 in your packet. Ms. Voss, question number 1. The city clerk oversees the liquor licensing. Above and beyond the state of Colorado codes, what changes, if any, would you suggest to the liquor license code in Wheat Ridge?
Well, not been there, done that yet. I have not a clue. But I know there are changes that are voiced by different people that are involved with the Liquor Authority. And I will strive to make those changes as city clerk. I will attend their October meeting and learn more about this so that I can serve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. Mr. Kirkpatrick, question number 1. Would you like me to read the question?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. All due respect to whoever wrote the question, it is my position that the city clerk should not be recommending changes in the liquor code or any other legislative action. Pardon me. The city charter makes it very clear that legislative activities are conducted by the council. The clerk's office is enumerated in chapter 3 of the city charter, which is entitled Mayor and Administration. As clerk, I should not be proposing changes to the liquor code or anything else. Why? For the reason I mentioned earlier. There could come a day when people walk into the clerk's office with duly executed petitions to put an issue on the ballot. I would be the umpire of that election. Like the umpire in a baseball game, you can explain the rules or a ruling, but I do not believe that the city clerk should be telling either team when to change pitchers or who to put in as a pinch hitter. And because these issues can become contentious, it is very important that the clerk remain impartial and neutral on those kinds of decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Beginning with you again, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Question number 3. What is the most important item you can do to assist council in their decision-making?
I think it's incumbent upon the city clerk to make sure that when council receives its packet of information before each council meeting, that they have no more information than is necessary, but every tiny bit of information that is required to make an informed, intelligent decision. As city clerk, I will attend the agenda meetings with the mayor pro tem, the city manager, and the city attorney to make sure that I understand as city clerk exactly what the council will be considering. And I will make every effort to be sure that council has in front of it, so it can prepare well, all the background it needs. So for instance, if there is a proposed change in a city ordinance or part of the city code, there should be enough information to inform the council about the history of that particular provision and why it is up for discussion and potential action. I also believe that the minutes of the council meetings should be kept accurately, completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick.
She's up here waving this yellow card. It's a semaphore. Oh, okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Ms. Voss, question number 3. What is the most important item you can do to assist council in their decision-making?
Thank you. It is true that the city clerk is a non-sided position in the city. We choose no sides, we support no sides. But the most important thing that the city clerk does is taking of the minutes. That's historical. And those minutes should be readable, understandable, and accurate. I also understand that city council doesn't use much of the city clerk's department. Thus, I would make the suggestion that the roles be reversed, and let's see what the council can do for the city clerk in study session and policy updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. Ms. Voss, you'll be moving right into your closing statement. You have 60 seconds.
I want to give thanks to all the citizens who joined the election process tonight. I also want to thank those who created this forum and brought us all together. As you can tell, I have been involved as a citizen. I have served as a volunteer. Seems my whole life experience has led me to the best candidate for city clerk. I thank you in advance for your vote. Thank you, and vote Voss.
Thank you, Ms. Voss. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you have 60 seconds for your closing.
It would be the honor of my life to serve as the city clerk here. I decided to run after much soul searching because I believe that that statement we see in the lobby every time we come into City Hall is correct. People determine the quality of their government through either participation or neglect. It is my intention to participate in a very big way, to make the city clerk's office vital to the future success of the city. I very much would appreciate your vote when the mail ballots arrive in about 3 weeks, or on November 5th if you choose to go to the polls. If you would like more information about my background or my platform, you can go to kirkpatrick4clerk.com. The 4 is the digit. That's Kirkpatrick, like the captain of the Enterprise, followed by Patrick the Saint, although I am neither a captain nor a saint. Let's be clear about that. Thank you very much for coming tonight and for participating in your civic government.
Thank you both, and good luck to you as well. Next up, we will be hearing from our city treasurer and only candidate for our city treasurer. Just because he's unopposed, though, doesn't mean we're going to let him off the hook. So we're going to bring him up. Mr. Chris Miller, welcome. All right. You'll have your opening. We're going to use the same time frame. You'll have your opening statement. We'll have 2 minutes. And then I'm going to ask you 2 questions, which you've received ahead of time also. And then we're going to do a closing statement, too, if you wish. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you. Well, many of you know that I was appointed to this position. I never ran to be elected here. Mr. DiTullio was elected county treasurer, and city council appointed me back in February to finish his term, and I guess I'm here for some more. But I wanted to take this opportunity maybe to introduce myself to many of you who have never met me or had a chance to work with me. My background in this role as city treasurer kind of comes from my experience working at the city and county of Denver. I've been there for 14 years, and my first job there was reconciling all the city bank accounts at the city treasury in Denver. Believe me, you haven't lived, you reconciled all their bank accounts and processed all the bounced checks. While I was there, I also had a great opportunity to learn how a city does its investments. I did all the investment accounting for the city of Denver's $1.2 billion portfolio. I saw how all the buys and sells and the transactions would take place and transpire. And I learned quite a bit about things like banking and cash management and how treasury operations really work. I had an opportunity to work in the city controller's office in the city and county of Denver. There I was in charge of citywide accounting to make sure that all the city's revenues and expenses were recorded properly and within city fiscal rules and following things like generally accounted GAAP, general accounting principles and so forth. From there, I worked in the Department of Public Works in the city of Denver. I worked in project controls, and I got to really learn about things like project schedules and budgets and so forth, and I worked side by side with city engineers to determine when projects were either on time and under budget and so forth. Since then, I've just had a lot of opportunities to learn about how cities work and so on and so forth, and I'm really applying my time there here at Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. We'll move on to a couple of questions that we've given you. Number one, much of your position involves working with city staff. How does your experience benefit you in prioritizing the public interest?
All right. Well, as I said, I've worked a long time in city government. And I've been able to leverage a lot of my experience and apply it here in the treasurer position. I know when the city staff maybe says something, or I see a number and I said, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. Are you sure about that? And we've had a couple discussions on, how to present things like reporting revenues and facts to citizens, and the best way to do that so that no one's misled and citizens are provided with the best information. We've made some changes to some of the reports in the structure and how they were presented since I got here based on a few things that I've noticed. So I think that my experience working in government for so long gives me that perspective. It gives me that experience to identify when something can be improved, and also gives me the ability and the experience to work in the best interest of the citizens.
Thank you very much. Question number two, what do you see as the best way to keep council informed of budget and revenue updates to assist them in making tough decisions?
I really think that providing information to everyone, the citizens, city council, items of a financial nature are very important. One of the biggest and most key documents in any city government is the budget. The budget establishes the amount that is appropriated for all the city agencies to spend. The city can't spend more than what's appropriated by city council. So at any given time, that budget really controls the activity of all of our city agencies. One of the big and primary reports that my office puts out is the financial status report for the city of Denver, and it shows budget actuals. So at any given time, the city council can look at those reports and identify how city agencies are moving towards the goals and appropriations provided by city council. So I think that financial reporting, financial transparency is tantamount to giving council all the information they need to make their decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. If you would like to take 1 minute for a closing statement.
When I first got this job, a lot of people said, what value does the city treasurer position add? And there was discussion about whether we should initiate a charter change to remove the position. I've really have found that it provides a tremendous value to the city in a different way than the clerk and the city council does. It provides a great deal of oversight from a different perspective of those other positions, and it provides a tremendous value to the city. I'm involved in looking at all financial transactions. I review the bank accounts. I review the city's investment activity on a very regular basis. And I'm really happy that this position is here in Wheat Ridge, and I think that it adds a tremendous value to the city, and I hope you agree. And we'll continue to support this position moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking some time tonight. We know you're unopposed, but we certainly appreciate you coming in and sharing your views with us.
Thank you.
We're a little bit ahead of schedule right now, so we're just going to take about a 10-minute break while we catch up a little bit back here. And don't forget there's some refreshments in the backs. Thank you. for your patience. We're going to have just a slight change in our agenda because we are ahead in our programming. We are going to have the support and opposition of Wheat Ridge ballot question 2E come forward. We have Mr. Rob McLeod and Ms. Judy Capra. And would you like to sit at the table or the podium one at a time? Okay. I'm going to read the ballot question and language, and then I'll give you just a few seconds to introduce yourselves, and then you'll each have 3 minutes to read your side of the ballot question. This is ballot question, Wheat Ridge ballot question 2E on rezoning of 4,000 through 4060 Upham Street. The ballot question reads, shall Ordinance 1667, an ordinance rezoning real property at 4,000 through 4060 Upham Street, City of Wheat Ridge, from Residential 3 to Planned Residential Development, or PRD, with an outline development plan, ODP, allowing for 38 townhome units in 9 buildings to go into effect. We are going to read the support for the ordinance first. Mr. Am I reading that right? No. Okay. So support for the ordinance would be Ms. Capra, correct? I'm confused already. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to have you go first. Sorry for my confusion. I'm going to read this one more time, just so we can start fresh. All right. Shall Ordinance 1667, an ordinance rezoning real property at 4,000 through 4060 Upham Street, City of Wheat Ridge, from Residential 3 R3 to Planned Residential Development PRD, with an outline development plan ODP, allowing for 38 townhome units in 9 buildings go into effect. Mr. McLeod, you'll start. No. Oh, introductions? No. Why don't you each take 30 seconds to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go into the 3 minutes.
And my house is on Teller Street, so that's 1 block over from Upham. And I wasn't happy when the development was proposed and got together with a bunch of neighbors from all across Wheat Ridge, and we were responsible for carrying the petition to oppose this project.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll start the 3 minutes. Make sure the green light on your microphones is on. And speak into the microphone, otherwise the cameras won't pick you up. Mr. McLeod, you have 3 minutes.
Like I've said, we lived there for 20 years and lived next to these 4 homes that are there. They're currently blighted, condition homes. And for 20 years, we've been wanting to see somebody to bring life to that part of Upham, which in my opinion, that part of Upham Street's dying. And nobody in 20 years has thought those 4 properties were worth investing in as single-family homes. No one has thought it was worth investing in as R3. Finally, somebody comes along, wants to put a development in there, who came to us from the very beginning, got our input along the way, went through the process with the planning division, the zoning, everything through city council and all that. I want to see a nice product, 38 townhomes, right next to my house, as opposed to the 4 blighted homes that are there.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Mrs. Capra, you have 3 minutes.
So we don't want a high-density development at 40th and Upham. And if you're one of the 2,200 people who signed this petition, now's your chance to vote no. We already have large developments at each end of Upham. So at the 44th end, there's the 2 large senior housing buildings with the 3rd one on the books. And on the other end, there's that massive apartment complex being built next to Safeway. The last thing we need is more traffic being dumped on Upham. And I speak for most of the residents, easily 90% on Teller, and most of them on Upham. We don't want to see all that traffic there. Traffic's the biggest concern. Rob's right, these houses have looked somewhat blighted, but it's important to know that these houses have been owned by developers for over 10 years. They've let them run down. We heard about code enforcement earlier. There probably would have been place for code enforcement there. But do we reward developers by letting them scrape if they let their houses run down? The zoning currently is R3, and under the current zoning, they could build 21 residential units on those 4 lots. So R3 would allow some density. That's 21 units. 21 units is more than a lot of us would like to see, but it's legal. By requesting a change to PRD, they can almost double the density from 21 to 38. And 38 units where there currently are 4 single-family homes, that's a huge jump in density. And there's very little green space that accompanies the development that's being proposed. Ideally, if a PRD is used properly, it could really lead to some attractive and desirable developments. But unfortunately, PRD is being used to allow for high density, extremely high density developments with minimal landscape. That violates city code. The city code states the planned development process, the process for PRDs, should not be used to circumvent the intent and spirit of the protections afforded by the zoning specs. And yet, it seems that we're using PRDs to get around the protections that R3 would afford. Wheat already has too many high-density projects. It's interesting that in the 2012 census, Wheat Ridge had 14,000, a little more, living units. Then, just in the last year, 2018-2019, an additional 3,400 residential units have been approved. So, over 100 years it took to get 14,000. And now we've done 3,000 in just 1 year. Thank you. Please vote no.
Thank you very much for your time, both of you. Next, we will hear from our Jeffco School Board candidates here at the podium, one at a time. First, I'm going to call for District 2, Mr. Rob Applegate. Oh, sorry, District 3. Let's do it right here. It's better right here. Right here, sorry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for everyone that's watching at home, including my 2 kids. Hi. My name is Rob Applegate, and I'm running for Jefferson County Board of Education. I have 2 kids in Jeffco schools. My oldest went through Welchester Elementary and is now in the iSTEM program at Bell Middle School. My younger son is in his 2nd year at Norma Anderson Preschool, so I will be invested in Jeffco schools for many years to come. I was raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, sometimes leaving work before I was up and often coming home after I had fallen asleep. I started working at 14 and wasn't even sure if I was going to go to college, but fortunately found the Colorado School of Mines, where I earned an undergrad in engineering physics and a PhD in applied physics. With that background, I know how to do research. I look at all sides of the issues, and I come to the best outcomes. I served as the Watchdogs coordinator at my son's school. That's a program that promotes positive male role models like dads, uncles, grandfathers into the schools. And I was a member of the PTA. I served on the Golden Schools Foundation, which is a nonprofit that supports the Golden area schools. With Stober being my neighborhood school, I was upset when the district began talking about closing the schools. I was surprised when I saw my own neighborhood school and Pennington on that list. Pleasant View Elementary, a Golden area school, was the only school that was ultimately closed. Pleasant View was a Title I school with over 65% free or reduced lunch and was in a much less affluent area than some of the other schools that were on the chopping block for closing. In a community where stability may be hard to come by, Pleasant View was a foundation for those parents and those kids. Some of those parents were in similar situations as my mom was and would not have been able to take off work and rally to save their school. With the moratorium on school closures lifted, this is something I am deeply concerned about. In addition to school closures, my priorities for the school board can be broken down into ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I've got that also on my pamphlets outside and on my website too. But A for academic excellence, B for a balanced perspective, C for children and community centered, 1 for safety and security, 2 for fiscal accountability, and 3 for equity and choice. Again, these priorities are explained in greater detail on my website, applegateforjeffcokids.com. I always seek a balance and will work to gather input from all stakeholders in the community. Educators, administrators, support staff, students, parents, and the 70% of Jeffco households that don't have any kids in the school system. All voices are important and add value. I came from modest means, and a strong public education was a key to my success. I've served on nonprofit boards with a focus on arts and education and plan to bring this experience as well as a logical and balanced approach to the school board and will actively reach out to all sides on the issues. I'm asking for your vote, so please vote Rob Applegate in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Next, we will have Ms. Joan Chavez-Lee.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation to speak to you tonight. My name is Joan Chavez-Lee, and I'm seeking your support for my candidacy for Jeffco School Board District 4. Just to remind you, it's a county-wide vote, even though we represent certain districts within the county. So my history in Jeffco, I have been a teacher and a principal. I've been a parent and now proud grandparent of Jeffco schools. And I think because of my experience, I bring good perspective to this actual board seat. I became involved in Jeffco schools in 1987 when my daughter Rosa began kindergarten down in Lakewood at Mulholland Elementary, 10th and Harlan. And at that point, I was a single mom with 2 small kids. I quickly realized how important a quality education is for our students, as well as how well a school community can help not only kids, but also parents. It's really important. I was surrounded by great people at Mulholland, great teachers who helped mentor me in my decision to become a teacher. They really supported me in that effort. So I began a teacher. I taught at 3 different schools. I was at Lumberg, down the road a little bit, back at Mulholland, and then at Stein. I became a principal at Russell Elementary, at Mulholland Elementary, and finished my career at Wheat Ridge Middle School. I believe actually Wheat Ridge is kind of my second home because I have continued to be involved with Wheat Ridge students. I'm a proud member of the Wheat Ridge Kiwanis Club with some other members here tonight. And in that venue, we really work to support kids in Wheat Ridge, in particular at Everett Middle School, as well as at Wheat Ridge High School. So we've done that for a long time. So, also, I'm a board member for CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, and they really work with foster kids in the court system to provide really positive mentorship for them and to help them navigate the court system. There are several things that are important for me as I pursue this endeavor to become a school board member. One is school safety. We need to continue to analyze the best school safety practices and continue to add those to our schools. Happy to know that we're doing that as part of the mill levy bond issues that we were approved. We are adding things like additional video cameras to schools as well as a bulletproof glass. That's important to schools. And again, it's important really that we provide a real safe school. Is it time? Okay. I will get this right at some point, just how quickly time goes. So thank you so much for letting me speak to you this evening. I know you've been here a long time, and everybody's still awake, so that's wonderful. Thank you. It's all right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we will have Miss Susan Miller.
Good evening to those out in the audience in the television land and to all of you here as well. Thank you very much to the Chamber for hosting this evening, and I'd like to thank you all for staying and talking and listening to us about your school board candidates. So just a little bit about me. I have 4 children that navigated Jeffco schools, including Kiffin Elementary, Creighton and Evergreen Middle Schools, and Lakewood and Wheat Ridge High Schools. And I have volunteered. Among other roles, I've chaired the Wheat Ridge High School Accountability Committee, been president of its PTSA, and served on various school and district committees. For 6 years, I was also president of Jefferson Association for Gifted Children, where we engaged in nonpartisan, evidence-based advocacy for gifted, as well as our twice exceptional special ed students at the district, state, and local level. In addition, I've spent a majority of my professional career in the world of public finance. I began my career at Standard & Poor's and moved into banking. My finance experience has fine-tuned my skills to manage progress, allocate resources, evaluate sound financial proposals. So why am I running for Jeffco School Board? Let me start by asking all of you a question. How many of you worry about how well our schools are preparing our children for the 21st century? Yes, if you are like me and most of my friends, you do worry about this. We believe Jeffco could do a better job of preparing our children for the challenges that they will face after graduation. For example, they say that up to 3rd grade, students are learning to read, and after that, they are reading to learn. So how are our kiddos doing in Jeffco? In Jeffco last year on 2019 CMAS, 75% of our 3rd graders that were eligible for free and reduced lunch did not meet state literacy standards. If you can't read well, it's hard to keep up. It's also extremely hard for teachers to change the task. If you elect me, I'll have a laser focus on improving achievement results for all of our children to make sure they are all well prepared for the 21st century economy. We know this can be done. Right here in Jeffco, right here in Wheat Ridge, I saw it at Wheat Ridge High School, where about 50% of our eligible free and reduced lunch children were receiving outstanding results from their teachers, not just in achievement, but also in cost management and innovative career and technical education programs. Another lesson I learned from Wheat Ridge leaders is you never give up, you never quit, and you never ever ring the bell. If you want someone who is knowledgeable, independent, determined, and sensible on your school board, who will never give up, who will never give up on our kids, who will never ring the bell, vote for me, Susan Miller. I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you very much.
I have 2 kids in Jeffco schools, so I certainly thank you all for joining us here today in Wheat Ridge, and good luck to all of you in November. Next, We have Jefferson County voters will be asked to vote on ballot question 1A. In support, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to ask our support and opposition folks to come forward. Ballot question 1A. Without creating any new tax or increasing the current authorized maximum county mill levy of 21.478 without further voter approval, shall Jefferson County be permitted to retain and spend or reserve all revenues received during 2020 and expiring after 2026, 7 years, notwithstanding limitations on spending and revenue contained in the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, Article 10, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution, TABOR, and applicable state statutes, provided that the maximum amount which the county may retain and spend or reserve above such limits in 2020 may not exceed $16.1 million. Voters should be aware that due to existing spending and revenue limits in Tabor in 2019, a single-family home valued at $400,000 received a reduction in property taxes of approximately $9 a month or $105 a year. And shall the county be permitted to retain and spend or reserve, beginning in 2027 and thereafter, an amount of county revenue that exceeds current spending and revenue limitations, but is no greater than the excess local revenues cap, which continues to limit future growth as provided in resolution number CC 19-270. Provided that any non-property tax revenue received in 2027 or thereafter may be retained and spent or reserved, notwithstanding limitations on spending and revenue contained in the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights and applicable state statutes, and shall such revenue be used to fund the cost of county government for providing the safety of the public, including maintaining adequate jail beds, staffing the district attorney's office, adequate patrol personnel, and wildfire mitigation, maintaining roads, bridges, and other new transportation improvements, preserving public facilities and infrastructure, including building security and maintenance, and providing services traditionally offered by Jefferson County and other Colorado County governments and statutory required services. With such spending to be reviewed and decided upon by the duly elected Board of County Commissioners as part of the annual budget process. That is the text of the ballot question. I would like to ask Mr. Jimmy Dixon to come speak in support of question 1A. You'll have 3 minutes. At 30 seconds, Ms. Vitale will wave a yellow card, and when your time is up, she will wave a red card and say time.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak on this important issue. I'm a Jeffco resident. I believe in yes on 1A for many reasons. As many of you know, Tabor was put into effect in 1992. I was born in 1989, and I know for a fact that basically my entire generation, we've gone through our entire lives without an adequately funded system. And that's for the state, but for county-wise, this is really important. Jeff Schrader, our sheriff, has been going around talking about this issue as much as possible. He's going to have to close down 288 beds in the county jail if this does not pass, and then shortly after he'll have to close another level, around 300 beds. These aren't low-level offenses for the most part. These are felons that would he'd basically have to let go. The other thing to think about is wildfire. You guys may not have to deal with that here in Wheat Ridge, but you still have to deal with the repercussions of those type of things. Our Jefferson County area is prone to some of the, basically right now, some of the most overgrowth when it comes to wildfire mitigation in the entire country. It's an extremely high-risk area, and it affects the whole county if there's big fires, just like we a little scared about the fire that happened in Golden the other day, but making sure that we have the resources to go up there and do as much fire mitigation as possible because a huge fire is going to be rougher to our economy than even Tabor. So other things to think about is that longer wait times at the DMV. We know that we wait long enough at the DMV. We don't need any more of that. Roads and bridges. Our county roads and bridges are dependent on this. So essentially, we're going to have a $16.1 million shortfall next year if this does not pass. And essentially, what it would cost if you own a home of about $400,000, it would cost you about $4.50 a month is what you get back from this Tabor refund that you get every year. So I don't know about you, but $4.50 a month for me is nothing. It's definitely worth paying that so we have good county services. The other thing I wanted to mention is maybe not here in some of the actual municipalities, they have the school resource officers, but in other parts of the county where they depend on the sheriff, that might be one of the things that they cut immediately is school resource officers for our schools that are in unincorporated Jeffco. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon, for your time. Speaking on the opposition side of 1A is Mrs. Tina Franco.
Well, good evening, Wheat Ridge. I'm Tina Francone, former RTD director, former Jefferson County Commissioner. Thank you all for being here tonight. I know it's been a long evening. I won't take all of those 3 minutes on this important issue. I'm going to urge you a no vote on this Jefferson County Proposition 1A. It's just bad policy. You know, our county commissioners and our county government has said there's a budget crisis with no articulation of what that crisis is. There's been no showing of cuts. In fact, a careful study of the budget year after year after year after year shows a steady increase in the spending in the county. Nevertheless, we're told that the budget crisis will negatively impact our public safety. Sheriff Schrader will be forced to close 2 floors of the jail and releasing hundreds of criminals out onto the street. Now, I don't know about you, but I know Jeff Schrader personally and professionally. I don't think that's happening. I don't think Sheriff Schrader would let that happen. In fact, Jeffco Sheriff's #1 job is to maintain public safety and to make sure that we, the public of Jefferson County, are safe. I think that's their job #1. But what's so misleading about this ballot language is that if it's true that there was a budget crisis, and the basis for that crisis has a critical impact on our public safety, on our sheriffs and our law enforcement and our DAs, the language of this measure doesn't guarantee that those entities get 1 dime. If you'll read that carefully, you'll see that it articulates 4 categories of spending, but it doesn't guarantee that the most critical of those, our public safety, is going to be funded as they request. This ballot measure has support of a lot of big names in the county, a lot of important people, but I urge you to read that language. I trust that you can read that and you can see for yourself that this is bad policy. This is the wrong solution to a question that has really some negative and really some very dangerous unintended consequences if we vote yes. So I'm Tina Francone. I thank you for your time tonight, and I'll urge a no vote on Jefferson County Ballot Proposition 1A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Francone, for your time. And finally, for the entire state of Colorado, we have 2 propositions named CC and DD. Do we have support and opposition for both? All right, our rules state that I, as the moderator, will read from the Blue Book. I'm going to read the ballot language and the pro and the con. Proposition CC is named to retain state government revenue. And the text reads, without raising taxes and to better fund public schools, higher education, and roads, bridges, and transit within a balanced budget, may the state keep and spend all the revenue it annually collects after June 30th, 2019, but is not currently allowed to keep and spend under Colorado law, with an annual independent audit to show how the retained revenues are spent. The arguments for Proposition CC from the Blue Book read, Proposition CC provides more money for critical investments in Colorado's future without raising tax rates. By allowing the state to keep the money it already collects, the measure provides needed funding for K-12 education, higher education, and transportation, while Colorado currently ranks in the top third of states in household income. It ranks in the bottom third in per pupil public spending on both K-12 and higher education. Further, the state's roads are deteriorating while the cost of improvements continues to increase. Addressing these challenges requires statewide investment, and Proposition CC provides revenue for these investments immediately and into the future. Proposition CC allows elected officials to make better policy decisions while preserving the citizens' right to vote on any new state taxes and tax rate increases. Because these tax increases will still require voter approval, if the measure passes, state government spending will remain limited. Proposition CC simply allows the state government to keep the money it already collects. Similar measures have been approved by voters in most Colorado counties, cities, and school districts. Arguments against Proposition CC read, Proposition CC results in higher taxes by permanently eliminating all state TABOR refunds required by Colorado Constitution. Taxpayers are being asked to sacrifice their refunds to pay for programs that should already be funded within the state budget. Even with the limit, the state government has already shifted money between funds and raised fees and tolls to increase its revenue faster than inflation and state population growth. Proposition CC will cause government to expand at an even faster pace. Proposition CC continues to erode taxpayer protections in the Colorado Constitution. Instead of asking voters for permission to keep specific amounts of money collected above the revenue limit each year, the state government is asking voters to give up refunds of unknown amounts forever. The measure broadly directs where the new money will be spent, but the specifics can be changed in the future without voter approval. Further, while spending this new money for education and transportation, the legislator could redirect existing funds to any other purpose. Proposition DD, legalization and taxation of sports betting to fund water projects and obligations. Proposition DD, legalization and taxation of sports betting to fund water projects and obligations. Shall state taxes be increased by $29 million annually to fund state water projects and commitments and to pay for the regulation of sports betting through licensed casinos by authorizing a tax on sports betting of 10% of net sports betting proceeds, and to impose the tax on persons licensed to conduct sports betting operations. The arguments for Proposition DD. Water is a scarce resource in Colorado, and demand will continue to increase as the state's population grows. Colorado's economy and way of life, from urban cities to agricultural communities, will suffer if the state cannot meet its water demands. Revenue from taxes on legalized sports betting would provide much needed financial support to protect the state's water resources. Many Coloradans bet on sporting events now, but because that activity is illegal, they use black market bookies and websites, which are not subject to oversight or regulation. Legalizing sports betting in Colorado will create consumer protections for people who place sports bets, ensuring that they receive their winnings and do not fall victim to fraud or abuse. Arguments against Proposition DD. Proposition DD puts no limits on the amount a person can bet on sports, making it easy to lose a lot of money with just the touch of a button on a smartphone. Of the millions in potential revenue, only $130,000 each year is dedicated to gambling addiction services, and this amount does not grow with an increase in sports betting activity. This small amount of money may not be enough to help people who are harmed by the legalization of sports betting in Colorado. Proposition DD tries to tackle Colorado's water needs without providing enough detail or money. Specific water projects are not identified, and some may have potential unintended consequences for the environment and some communities. Additionally, Proposition DD will pay for only a portion of the Colorado Water Plan. That concludes our program for tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight, especially the candidates and the speakers, and remind you all to vote in the upcoming election on November 5th. On behalf of the Wheat Ridge Chamber of Commerce and the City of Wheat Ridge, I'm Joe DeMott. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you all have a great night. Thank you.